Amaryllis, from pollination to seedling. According to Gardner's Path, amaryllis typically takes 3 to 5 years to bloom from seed. You may wonder what my previous experience with amaryllis is. I have owned amaryllis plants for about 2 years now and have begun growing them from seed myself. I've also thoroughly researched amaryllis during this 2 years, including things like soil, wind, sun, and pot qualities and requirements, watering processes, and repotting processes. In this presentation, I will be covering pollination, amaryllis care, harvesting and sprouting of seeds, planting and feeding of sprouts, and the repotting process. Before we begin, some required materials are a blooming amaryllis, an optional small soft bristle paintbrush, a measuring cup measuring at least 8 ounces, gardening shears, a plate or dish. This can be paper or reusable, paper towels, a spray bottle, Ziploc bags, gallon is preferred, though quart is also permissible, one or multiple trough-shaped planters, potting soil that should be well draining and have a 6.0 to 6.8 pH, fertilizer that is both granule and liquid. This will mean 2 different fertilizers, and some additional planters that are 8 inches deep and have a radius of 8 inches or a square shape of 8 by 8. You have 2 pollination choices in pollinating amaryllis. There is natural pollination, also referred to as insect pollination, and self-pollination. Natural pollination requires only a few seconds to check on the amaryllis every day. Self-pollination requires at least 5 minutes hands-on care for 3 to 7 days in a row. Natural pollination also results in more offspring variation, as the pollens used to pollinate the amaryllis come from a variety of sources and therefore produce a variety of different colors and textures in the resulting amaryllis. Self-pollination, as described in this presentation, can be done using the same amaryllis plant, which will give you a very similar, though not identical looking amaryllis. Natural pollination. Indoor plants will require a slow transition to the outdoors. This means sunlight levels and wind levels need to be slowly increased from the indoor level to the outdoor level. Wind may still never reach that outdoor level if you are in a heavy wind area, as this will most definitely wind up breaking your amaryllis. You will also need good access for bees and insects, as they are going to be your main pollinators. Self-pollination. For pollen collection, you will be using the before mentioned small soft bristle paintbrush. This will be used to collect pollen off of the anther and transfer the pollen to the stigma of the flower. This process will be done for at least 1 time a day for 3 to 7 days in a row. I recommend doing this 2 times a day if possible, and also for the maximum length of time available. This may be more or less due to blooming period. After pollination, it takes 4 to 6 weeks for your seeds to incubate to the point of harvesting time. During this, you will need to be practicing proper amaryllis care. This means weekly waterings. These can be done every 7 days on a schedule, or more preferably, by measuring the top 2 inches of soil and watering when they are dry. A single bulb will require 8 ounces of water every watering period. Additional bulbs in the same pot will require 1 to 2 ounces of additional water. Overwatering amaryllis results in bulb rot and molding, which will nearly definitely kill your plant, as there is very little chance of recovery. After this 4 to 6 week incubation period, it is time for harvesting seeds. A single section of a seed pod produces 50 to 60 seeds, and an entire pod produces 150 to 180 seeds. When your seed pod is ready for harvesting, it will be swelled and have a yellow-brown color. It will also be drying out and splitting, as is exhibited in the photo to the right, though it may not split quite as much, as this specific pod could have been harvested approximately 2 days earlier. When it is time for harvesting, you will cut off the pod using the gardening shears and set it in a cool, dark place for approximately 3 to 5 days. After this time, you will fully open the pod and examine the seeds, throwing away moldy ones. Spread out your good seeds in a single layer on your plate or in your dish, and then set them in the same cool, dark place for approximately 1 week. Your seeds should be fully dry after this period. After harvesting and drying, it is time for sprouting your seeds. To do this, gather paper towels and dampen each side using a spray bottle. Place your seeds in a single layer in the paper towels, as exhibited in the photo to the right. Then wrap the seeds in the paper towels and transfer them into a Ziploc bag. You should have very little air in the bag, again, as exhibited in the provided photo on the right. You need to check progress daily on these seeds for sprouts. You may also need to respray your paper towels and seeds, as paper towels can dry out before sprouts appear. Once your sprouts are formed, it is time to examine them and throw away all moldy ones. Formed sprouts will look somewhat like the photo to the right. You may have more or less green than the sprouts in the photograph. After sprouts have been formed, it is time for planting them. To do this, you will fill a planter with a mix of potting soil and fertilizer. This is where I use the drop-shaped planter. Your fertilizer should be granule and should make up about 1/4 of your potting mixture. Make sure this is thoroughly mixed and then moisten it to the point where it sticks slightly to your hands, and when spread to the bottom of your planter, does not allow for any excess moisture. Then level this off and make small holes with your finger approximately 1 to 2 inches deep and about 2 inches apart. Put 1 sprout in each hole and carefully cover it with the soil mixture. I like to leave the sprouted greens up out of this mixture, though this is not always possible, so just make sure it is pointing upward. After this, you will need to properly feed your sprouts. If you do not feed them, they will not grow and produce good amaryllis bulbs. To do this, I use a liquid fertilizer diluted to 1/4 strength with water. It is important to feed the seedlings only once every week or 2, as overfeeding will also kill them. I, again, like to use a spray bottle. This is because it ensures a more thorough coverage of all of the seedlings, and it helps somewhat to prevent overfeeding any specific seedling. In between your feedings, you may also need to water your seedlings, as sometimes your soil will get dry. Again, measure this with your finger, and if your soil is dry more than 2 inches deep or at 2 inches deep, it is time to water. Repotting. After a certain point, you will need to repot your seedlings. You will know it is time whenever your seedlings have reached 6 to 10 inches in growth. At this time, prepare your new pots with the same previously mentioned soil mixture. This will be approximately 3/4 soil, 1/4 granule fertilizer. You will moisten this in the same method, making sure there is no excess water once separated to the bottom of the planter. Once you have achieved this, make a small hole and place the bulb down into it. The bulb will need to be separated from the others in the original drop-shaped planter by hand. I would prefer, though you can also use a shovel. Just be very careful because amaryllis develop pot roots, meaning they spread in all directions, and if severed at this stage, will potentially kill your plant. Though there is a chance for recovery if not too much is severed. After repotting your seedling, it is time to continue your usual care routine. It will take, as previously mentioned, 3 to 5 years approximately, though potentially more, to get to the point of having a bloom. In summary, amaryllis take 3 to 5 years to bloom from seed. Pollination and maturing of seed pods is a very long process. Harvesting takes at least 1 week and multiple drying cycles. Amaryllis roots need to be carefully removed during repotting due to pot roots. Amaryllis are also fairly low maintenance plants, but require consistent care. Here is my source for this presentation. As you can see, this is the Gardener's Path article previously mentioned. It is very thorough, and if you would like additional information, it is a good source.